Welcome to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. CenturyMartialArts.com for everything that is martial arts. And now your host, Mike D. and JD.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Label. I'm JD, and in case you haven't noticed, well, Mike D's not here, but I brought another friend along. It's Jason McNolty. He's our Director of Marketing here at the AMAA. Hey, thanks for joining us, Jason, and being my special co-host today.
Hey, my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
It should be a good time. So do you know what this podcast is all about?
For the most part, but why don't you kind of get me up to date?
You're lying. You don't have any clue what this thing is about, so I'm going to tell you. All right, so this podcast is a podcast about disabilities, and it's not your typical podcast about disabilities. We don't, tiptoe around the issues or do things like that. Basically, we just answer questions about disabilities in a straight-up kind of manner, and those questions, well, they come from you, and I answer them as the guy with a disability. In case our audience doesn't know, I was born with cerebral palsy, but I haven't let it stop me, and done all sorts of things and founded this organization. And so I thought today we'd talk about what it is like to be an employer of somebody with a disability, because I don't know if these folks know it or not, but you used to be my boss in another light. So I thought that'd be a great topic, because I know disabled individuals in the workforce, sometimes it's tough. I take it for granted because I live it every day, but what's your perspective on that? And that's what we want to touch on today.
Oh, I think it's great. Even before you came on board with my business venture there, I did a lot of research in the past as I did some mill work and actually looked into, I believe it was called Rutland, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but that's all they did is they kind of linked up employers with employees with disabilities. Rutland Industries is actually what it was called. And it was a great program. I know they did a lot of putting together, they were like bicycles and exercise equipment. So that was pretty neat.
For somebody like myself with a disability, I'll just kind of delve into what my experience was, and then we'll take it from the employer standpoint. So for me, as you know, growing up, I had some learning disabilities that went along with the physical, and so school and book work and those type things weren't my cup of tea, and it was assumed that I was being lazy or just didn't care, and that was partly right, but it wasn't until I was like 12 years old that they found out that I had some learning disabilities that went along with it after I went and got some testing. And, the rest of my high school career was okay. I got through, but I was just like everybody else. I hung out on Friday nights. We did stupid stuff, but academically, I just struggled. And the school was always pushing me, and they're like, you got to go to college. You got to go to college to be successful. You got to go to college to be successful. And I'm like, I'm not going. It's not my cup of tea, and that's all there is to it. I'm not gonna do it. And they're like, well, what are you gonna do after graduation? And I'm like, I don't know, just kind of sit around and take it easy, and I'll get a job like everybody else. I had worked in the summers through high school at some various different jobs and programs and job placement programs, and seemed to fit in pretty well and thought it was going to be pretty easy. Got out of school and went to get a job, and basically was told that I was unemployable, useless, and I should collect a check once a month and be happy with that. I did a lot of volunteering. People love volunteer work, but they didn't want to pay me for my skills. And so I was kind of just at a loss for what I was going to do in terms of employment for a while. And I actually got involved with a state placement program, as much as I hated to, and vocational rehab again, and got placed at the radio station and had a career there for a while. And then after that, kind of found you guys. And we'll get into how I found you guys and why I found you guys in a little bit.
Yeah, well, JD, I mean, to add to that, I mean, I'm one, I didn't go to college. I had very little college education, as far as I think I got some English comp and maybe some statistics. And I have found myself very successful, and I don't think it's always about having a college education, is that determination, as one like yourself has. So, you got that going for you. And personally, as employing you in the past, you're a pioneer, and you're organized, and you got a great head on your shoulders. So, you're doing something right.
It's all about the attitude, really. It's about, finding what you want to do, and not taking no for an answer, and just surrounding yourself with the people that can help you, and having a good support system, and just driving through. When I started at the radio station, I was 18 and fresh out of high school, and I had all the answers, and I knew what I was going to do. And about this time, I realized that all my friends were going off to college, and I was kind of hanging out around home, and it wasn't quite as fun as it was when everybody else was around. And so, as I mentioned, I got involved in this placement program, and they placed me at the radio station, but I felt like I was almost being taken advantage of, because I started out answering the phone, but I saw no movement towards getting into production or being on the air. And so I was used to being my own advocate, and it was only my second week there, but I just things weren't moving fast enough for me. And so I actually spoke up to the general manager, and I said, look, I'm here to learn radio. I'm not here to answer your phone. And if I'm not going to learn radio, then I'm just going to go home. And he had a big blow up, and I had a big blow up in his office, and he almost threw me out. And I had a friend that took me under his wing and said, you need to go back in there and apologize. And I said, apologize for what? My 6-week program is 3 weeks in, and I haven't done radio yet, And so I went back and apologized. And at that point, I realized it was time to grow up. And I used that time that I was at the radio station, those 4 years, as my hands-on college. And I soaked up everything I could and worked for as many hours as I could to learn my craft, and eventually worked my way into production, was the production director for 5 radio stations, and ended up being an award-winning copywriter and radio producer. And then from there, I met you guys, and that was about after a 20-year radio career. And the way I met you guys is kind of unique. Anything to add or any questions for me so far, Jay?
No, I mean, like I said, obviously you use your career, and I myself, being in the construction industry primarily, I started when I was young, and again, I didn't go to college as well, and I used the experiences as an apprentice and worked my way up, and I used that as my education, and you get knocked down, you get back up again. That's how I learned, I guess. You learn by making mistakes, and you move on from those mistakes and do the best you can, and keep a positive attitude, and look at where you're at now.
Yeah, and for me, so 20 years into this radio career, I was comfortable there. They were comfortable with me. I was pretty much kind of running the show as a supervisor of that department. But the attitude and the mentality from management was like, oh, we're doing the guy with a disability a favor. He needs a job, and quite honestly, he can't find a job somewhere else. And his wife works here with him, and it just works out. So he's going to put up with whatever comes his way, and he's just going to stick into it. Well, the management had turned over a few times since I had started, and so they didn't realize that I was actually the one that got my wife the job there when she was 15 years old. And so it wasn't because she was there that I was there. It was quite the opposite. And it wasn't because I couldn't find a job. It was because I enjoyed what I did. And I finally realized that it was time for me to show them that I could get a job, that I had the skills, and that I didn't, need to be there any longer. And so I took the jump, and I said, I'm done. 2 weeks, I'm done. I've got something lined up. You guys had an advertisement out for you were looking for an administrative assistant. I had some experience doing that. And so I took it, and it by no means was it my strength, but I felt like I needed to jump out on a limb to prove to myself, to them, and all my doubters that I was a viable asset to the economy, and that I could survive on my own and make it. And so that's what I did. And for me, it was scary. I mean, I had grown up at the radio station, and so the jump was big. But going on with you guys was a good move because it was right down the street. I was able to make my hours flexible around the AMA, and that was really where my passions began to pick up. Was the AMA, and I wanted to focus more on it. And so you guys, by virtue of what you needed, it just seemed to work out. But it was scary for me going in there cold. It was, I knew you guys from town and things like that, but I didn't know you on the work front. And so I wonder, what was your recollection of that, or what were you thinking as an employer? Because I know that I've known your business partner on a more personal level than I did you. And then eventually we got to just be really good friends and brought you into the fold with this and things like that. But it's always interesting, everything I look at is from my perspective of a disability. So I'm trying to get that outside perspective.
Well, that's you definitely made a leap of faith. I can only imagine, as making transitions, it's scary, and being in business for myself for many years, I've always led by example, I guess. I think there's a clear difference between a boss or a manager and a leader, and sometimes the two don't always relate. As far as looking at you with a disability coming into the workforce, I mean, first of all, I think it's great. I mean, you have a work ethic that seems to lack in a lot of other areas. And then as far as your disability, we all have disabilities. I'm probably one of the most unorganized person in the world.
No.
When it comes to stuff. I know, especially somebody who used to keep tabs on me, so we all have a disadvantage at one point and another. It's how you manage that disadvantage, and it's how you keep a positive outlook, and move on and keep the faith in what you're doing. I love the fact that I've been able to come to the AMAA just as a business standpoint. I love what you're doing. Personally, martial arts, I don't have a lot of experience in. I think I took Taekwondo back probably when I was, I'd say probably 10 or so. And then after high school, we all get comfortable and may have packed on a couple of pounds or 10. But as far as the vision of what you're doing and the attitude of how you do it and the manner of how you present yourself, what disability?
Right. And I get that a lot. And what I tell people is, I know that people are comfortable with my disability when they are helping me either into a vehicle or down the stairs, pardon me, into a vehicle or down the stairs, and they forget that I need the crutches. And they're like looking at me like, why aren't we going anywhere? It's like, hey man, if we're going to move, I need those things. And they're like, oh yeah. So that's when that's when you're over that hurdle. But what about things like liability and things like that? I mean, does that ever cross your mind as a business owner? And is it scary? Because I've heard that it is. I've heard some other people say, that they felt like maybe that was the reason that they didn't get jobs or things like that. What can you lend to that?
On a liability standpoint, I guess that's a hard one for me because I don't see that. I don't pay attention, I guess, as probably as much as I should as a business owner of the liability standpoint. I guess I take it, one stride at a time. And if somebody's going to have a lawsuit against you, then, it is what it is. We do what we can to try to limit liability. I guess that's the protection of all of us. But, as somebody with a disability, I don't see that as an issue as far as a liability, because somebody that, walks on crutches or is in a wheelchair or is missing a limb, has just the amount of liability as somebody who, has all their limbs and walks on 2 feet, and, they can slip and fall on the steps just like anybody else can. So liability standpoint, I guess I don't pay much attention to that as much as, like I said, maybe I should, but I don't.
And I always felt like it was even with the radio station and things like that, or other jobs that I've had, I always felt like it was a two-way street, and it's my responsibility as the person with the disability to communicate my needs and my abilities physically, to my supervisors. And I always felt like I tried to do that, in a pretty good manner. And I always tried to hope that I made, the employer comfortable. And I think for us as individuals with disabilities, it's important to remember to try to do that. It's a two-way street, team effort,
I agree. I think one of the things as an employer, is kind of where you draw that line in the sand as far as, what capabilities does somebody have? And obviously we promote inclusion. So at what point do you hey, do you need a hand with that? As opposed to what point does somebody like yourself say, hey, could you give me a hand with that? I think that's the balance that a lot of people, and I think it's the lack of understanding of somebody with a disability of, for the most part, you're pretty independent, and when you can't, you need help, to ask.
Right. And I think, first of all, before you go to, the workforce with a disability, I think you've got to be comfortable in your own skin and kind of know what your capabilities are, but don't be afraid to push the envelope a little bit, and don't be afraid to know that your employer is going to push the envelope a little bit. And when I talk about pushing the envelope a little bit, I guess, like I said, it didn't take long for us to strike up a good friendship, and it was kind of like you'd known me forever. But as I said, your business partner had known me for a while. He lived in town. He actually heard me do a motivational speech, and to this day, he says that's one of the reasons that he hired me. But I'm thinking of one instance, Jay, and we both couldn't stand it. But we basically we had to rotate in the office, cleaning the toilets, and so I had to put out a schedule, and your business partner was like, make sure you're on there because you're cleaning the toilets. And I said, well, wait, bro, because I told you in my interview, I was like, I'll do anything but clean toilets. He goes, yeah, but I hired you, and now that's what I need you to do. And I think it was actually pretty cool for me. I mean, a lot of people would be like, what are you doing? This guy's got a disability. It's obviously a physical disability. That's going to be hard for him. Maybe we should just pass him over. And to me, that was just pretty cool that I wasn't passed over. A lot of people would say, you got rocks in your head if you enjoy cleaning cleaning the toilet. But it wasn't that. It was just the fact that he didn't treat me any different than anybody else. And if everybody else was doing it, then he expected me to do it too. And to be honest with you, it wasn't as bad as it seemed on the surface. And that's probably one of the skills that I learned from working with you guys for a little bit, was how to clean a good toilet, you know. He always said that I used a little bit too much Clorox, but just wanted to make sure things were clean, you know.
Hey, there you go. I'm sure Katie is happy with that.
Oh, she loves it, you know. She loves it. But no, seriously, and I think from somebody that has a disability, like, that's important to me, that you know, I wasn't excluded or thought of any differently. Obviously, you know, he didn't put you in danger, and they would, you know, they would help me with what I needed, but I wasn't excluded. And so I think for employers, I think that's important. As you look at your employee with a disability, I would say, you know, be mindful of their needs and capabilities, but don't be afraid to push them, because sometimes folks with disabilities need a little bit of a push. And at the end of the day, even though they're griping about it, they're going to appreciate the push. And you may open up a door for them in their life that ends up making living with their disability easier. So just don't be afraid of it. You know, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I like that thought and that mentality, because, you know, as growing up, like you said, with a disability, everybody's the first to say, oh, he can't do that. You know, they can't do that. They can't do that. And to be pushed and treated like everybody else who can do that. You know, it may look a little different. I mean, let's be honest, but, you know, the end result is still there. So, you know, that's how you got to handle it.
So Jay, let's take a little bit of a break and hear from our sponsor, Century Martial Arts. You know, they get behind us 110% with everything that we're doing here with the organization. And let's hear a word from them, and then we'll come back and chat some more. How's that?
I love it.
Beyond the Label, presented by Century Martial Arts, for everything that is martial arts. It's no secret, every martial artist, no matter their age, dreams of becoming a legend. Having their name listed among the greats like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and Jackie Chan. You can hide it or deny it, but you know it's true. Being a legend takes raw talent, dedication, big breaks, and an ability to survive a roller coaster called fame. But it also takes one more thing to go with it: the best gear and equipment in the world. From the company that is martial arts, Century Martial Arts. They aren't just another martial arts supplier that's never set foot on a mat. They are martial artists, and that means they know their products and use what they sell. From uniforms and training gear to weapons and equipment, Century has it all for every martial arts style. Although you may never be listed among the greats, you can still shop like one at CenturyMartialArts.com and unleash your legend within. Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by Century Martial Arts. Check them out at CenturyMartialArts.com. Now back to the show with Mike D and JD.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Label. I'm JD, and in case you haven't noticed, Mike D is missing, but I've got a very special guest with me today. His name is Jason McNolty, and he is our Director of Marketing here at the Adaptive Martial Arts Association. But in a former life, before I said, hey, I'm done and I'm going to go focus on the organization, he was actually my boss, and so that's why he's here today, to talk about the topic of employing individuals with disabilities. Welcome, Jay. How's it going?
It's going great. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good time. So Mike, when Mike is here with me, he does the cup of the month, because he's always carrying some different cup. So I saw you drinking something before. What's your cup of the month here?
I do. Well, this cup of the month is actually Friends of the NRA, which is the National Rifle Association.
Okay.
So
Well, we won't ask you what's in the cup. This is your very first episode of Beyond the Label, and so I imagine you're a little bit nervous. But you asked me what the topic was, and I said I can't tell you. Can't tell you. It'll spoil the fun. Just hop on the show, and you'll learn as you go. So that's what we did. So yeah. So before the break, we were talking about employing me as a stellar employee for your company, and how that relates, and how it differs, from the way you might deal with other employees because of the fact that I have a disability. And to be honest with you, it sounds like there's no difference, and I can tell you firsthand there was no difference. So I guess back into it, as I said, I had the 20-year radio career. They were believing that they were doing the guy with a disability a favor after some time. And they believed that I couldn't find a job and that I was willing to stay there because my wife worked there and I was good and comfortable. And anybody that knows me knows, don't challenge me because I'll do what you say I can't. So I went out on my own, found myself a new job, and it was with your company along with your business partner who I'd known for quite some time. You and I actually, we'd never met before. I don't even think you were in my initial interview. I think I showed up for work. I was like, "Who are you, dude?" And you were like, "Yeah, well, I'm the co-owner." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So funny thing is, I don't even know if you know this story, but a few weeks before, between the transition of me leaving the radio station and coming on board with you guys, I'm also the emergency management director in my town, and we had to do some training, and it involved the school. And your wife works in the school system, and so she was actually in that class with me, and we were actually partnered up on a couple of exercises. And she said, asked all about me, and I said, yeah, I used to work at the radio station, but now I'm going to work for this company. And she said, oh, well, that's my husband's company, and blah, blah, blah. So actually, Jay, I hate to burst your bubble, but she knew me long before you did, or long before you did, a few weeks before you did.
Well, there you go.
I don't even know if you knew that story or not. Did you know that story?
I did know that story because likewise, when I come home and I say, hey, we hired this, a new admin assistant, and his name's JD, and told her about it. He's like, oh yeah, I met JD on, I think it was an emergency management course, as you mentioned. And kind of had a good giggle, like small world. And even as you mentioned, I might not have been in the preliminary interview. As you know, I did a lot of running around, but obviously, your impression on everybody in my absence, got to me, and therefore you were hired.
And it's no secret, Jay. For me, it worked out. It was great. It was less than a mile from the house. Was able to focus on the organization, but for me, grading myself as an admin assistant for you guys, I'd have to say I sucked. I mean, I got to be honest with myself. It was not my cup of tea. I did it, but it was just not my cup of tea. It was like, okay, well, you enter these invoices into the computer. Okay, wow. You know what I mean? I was just, half of the time I was like checked out thinking about the AMAA and the next moves of the AMAA, and your office was like behind mine, so you had to walk by me every time, and it was like, it didn't take long for me to realize that like you were the kind of guy that you could stop and have a conversation with and ask a question to. And so I would find myself thinking about stuff off the clock, and I would say, Jay, what do you think about this? I've got this organization and I want to do this with it. I don't mean to take away from your business, but basically I was telling you I really wasn't interested in your admin position, that this was really where I wanted to go with things. And you and your business partner were both very supportive of that. I think that you seem to support it more. And just, I think because you had the time to invest in it. And so we got talking about it, and one thing led to another. I mean, is that kind of how you remember it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any secrets there were that your main focus was the AMAA. And I think we kind of knew that going in all along. Probably figured that this was a stepping stone and, not a career, but more of a job. It helped pay the bills and close to home, and gave you the schedule where you could focus on the AMAA. As you mentioned, I had to walk by your office every day, pretty much anywhere I went, whether it was to use the restroom, walk out the door, wherever. And we struck up many conversations and threw many ideas out there, with me standing in your doorway. Maybe not productive for work at the moment, but productive as far as the long-term vision of kind of, I think we share there. I definitely look at you as a visionary when it comes to, the AMAA. And I think what you're doing, is fantastic. And I was glad to be able to jump on board here and help you any way I could, because it was something that, I see was truly something you believed in your heart, and seeing that passion that goes into something. How can you not want to help?
And that was the thing. You and your business partners, I mean, you all rallied around it, and long before I started working for you, you guys supported what I was trying to do. And it's no secret. I'll take you back a little bit with the organization. The place I left, I was very committed to it, but their attitude was, like, it's never going to happen. And, nobody cares about martial arts. What makes you think you're going to be able to pull this off? And how are you going to make it so that you can do it, for your job? And we figured out a lot of things, and some of those things we're still figuring out. I don't know how I'm going to do it as my job, but I don't really care. I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now. For those of you that don't know, after I had the speech at a local high school, the principal there had said, what is it going to take to get you to come and work with these students? I think it would be very impactful. I was a graduate of the school. I had an opportunity to move on to the national stage with my radio career. That's why I left you guys. I tried it for a while. It didn't work out. And the school was just knocking at my door like, you need a place to go, come and help us. And so I've done that. My wife and I once again worked together. She had the job first this time around, and then they just kind of brought me in. But I enjoy working with the students, and I bring, or I hope I bring to the table an exposure to somebody with a disability for them. I hope I bring to them, what hard work will get you. And I hope I bring to them a realization that your success is not a path, it's a mountain, and you choose your route. As long as you get to the top, it doesn't matter how you get there. And that's what I hope I bring to the students. And I'm able to relate to some of the students that some other folks can't, and get through to them and be able to get them, to do some things that they wouldn't normally do. And so I think, everything happens for a reason, and my career path is a win-win, and you guys are still very supportive of it. And and Jay, you keep getting deeper and deeper into this thing as you see it grow. I mean, and without you and without the support of everybody, it would just be me just having this great idea. But we're really changing lives with what we do, and that's part of this podcast. Is I hope that it's a vehicle to be able to showcase the importance of inclusion and the impact that inclusion can have for people. I don't know where this thing is going to go, but I am passionate about it. I'm passionate about showing people with disabilities that you can do anything you put your mind to. And actually, you came in to that fold as well when I said, "Hey, Jay." I talked to you and your business partner. I said, "Hey guys, I'm going to need Monday off." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, because you see, Sunday I'm going to do this Spartan race on the toughest course on the circuit." And your reaction was?
I think it was great. I think you were crazy. I couldn't do it, but you definitely showed that you could do it. You pulled it off.
And I said, "Hey, Jay," I said, "you've helped me out, but can you help me out with one more thing?" And your answer was, "Yeah, what is it now?" And I said, "I need to be able to do a bucket carry. Can you come up with an idea for me to be able to do a bucket carry?" And you did. In 2 days, you built this harness. I wish I had it to show. I don't, but I wish I had it to show. You built me this harness that I harnessed the bucket into and hustled it up the mountain. So I think that's what makes it fun for you and I. I keep coming up with the crazy stuff and you just meet the expectations,
Yeah, and that was fun. And yeah, it was about a 48-hour turnover there where an idea was like a problem was put forth and an idea had to be developed and something and Melinda had to think that I was crazy out there running around trying to figure out. I got buckets strapped to me and putting weight in them and trying to figure out the best way to carry them and hold them and get it on and off, and it was fun.
I wish I had pictures of that, buddy.
I'm sure there's pictures around, but we'll just keep them around.
So Katie says that I'm the Mark Wahlberg of the operation. She says I'm the idea guy, and she said you come up with all the ideas and then you make us all figure out how it's going to happen. And so in honor of that today, I don't know if you guys can see. I don't want to move my camera, but in honor of that today, let me stand up. Let me see if you can see this. I wore my favorite shirt from Wahlberg's, and to my brothers and my sister, I'm sorry, but it's true. Let's see if you can see this. Can you see this thing? It says, "Mom's favorite," kind of crookedly because I'm having to hold myself up, but yeah, guys, sorry to burst your bubble, but that's who's Mom's favorite. It's me. So Jay, it was your first episode. What did you think?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, do you have any advice for any employers out there that might be looking for individuals with disabilities or have individuals with disabilities that are looking to work for them?
Yeah, I would encourage it. There's a lot of people out there that don't have a work ethic. And I think somebody with a disability who's trying to overcome any obstacles or negative feedback, will most likely have one of the best work ethics to put on the table. What you did for us, again, was a stepping stone, but you did it well. You showed up every day. It didn't matter if it was snow, sleet, raining, if you were sick, you were there. You put in your time. And then you went home, and I knew you devoted the rest of your time to the AMAA. And I think even moving on to the school was another venture that that I think you'd be very successful at, and you do have an interesting perspective as far as you have an interesting story, and a lot of people have hesitation toward people with disabilities, and most of that comes, I think, from the lack of knowledge, about how to handle somebody, and their personalities and the unknowns, I guess, that come with a disability. Because, quite frankly, we don't know. We don't know what goes on, inside your head, the struggles every day that you have to live with. That maybe somebody who's, got a different disability, or somebody that doesn't have a disability has to deal with it. But I think the perspective that you give to the kids at the school, is a positive environment for that, and it's educational. And more and more, there's more and more people with disabilities that have developed, social disabilities as well. And I think that all is a contributing factor.
Yeah, it's I really enjoy what I do, and like you said, I'm in a great spot. I'm able to focus on the AMA and give back to my community. I'm a member of the fire department. The community, ever since I was little, and my friends and everybody has just rallied around me, and my family, and I'm very thankful for all of it. And it's like you said, success isn't a path; it's a mountain, and you choose the route you want to take, and your success depends on whether you give up or not. And so if you don't give up and you don't take no for an answer, there's only one other thing to do, and that's win and get what you want. So that would be my advice to folks. Again, thanks for joining us, Jay, and taking the time out of your day to come in here and sit and talk about this. In a couple of episodes here coming up, we're going to have some more guests. We're going to have a psychologist on. Yes, that's what she is. She's a psychologist, and her name is Chrissy Assad, and she's going to just speak to us about anxiety in these times with COVID, and then anxiety as it kind of relates to individuals with disabilities. And then after that, we have an incredible story by Stephanie Schaefer that we're going to tell you about. And I don't know if some folks have heard her story or not, but she was involved in a horrific boating accident a couple of years ago and lost her legs, and has had to learn what life is like with a disability. And she's willing to join us and talk about her story. So we're looking forward to that. And till next time, this has been Beyond the Label. I'm JD. Mike D is MIA, but the other Jay, he's here. He's been here. Thanks, buddy.
No problem, JD. I'd like to send a special thanks out to Century, obviously, to help sponsor this podcast and continue on continue on.
Definitely. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Label. If you would like to be a guest on an upcoming episode, email contact@adaptivemartialarts.org. Beyond the Label is produced by JD Production and presented by Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. CenturyMartialArts.com for everything that is martial arts.